Here we go. My name's Grant, and I'm an addict. Welcome to the Sunday morning closing speaker for VRC 42. I'm going to turn the meeting over to Craig S.
I'm Craig Kubernetic. I'm going to move that over because I'm going to need it.
You're loud enough.
I'm real grateful, man. I'm real grateful to be at a meeting. I always like to thank God, the God of my understanding, for allowing me to be at a meeting with Another Day Clean. I want to thank you guys for asking me to come to VRC. It's my first time being a VRC. You guys have been really, you guys have really welcomed us. We've had a great weekend hanging out with some friends from other places, meeting different people. Man, I don't know, man. Every time I'm asked to share, I always think about, when I came into Narcotics Anonymous. That's the first thing to always come to my mind. I've been around here and I've heard people share, and a lot of people start from like in the beginning, and for me, my life changed when I came to Narcotics Anonymous. So I feel like that is the beginning for me. I always like to read before I share. That way I know if I said anything, I said something that made sense. Because, it came from our literature, and our literature makes sense, right? It says, what we knew about living before we came to NA almost killed us. Managing our own lives got us to Narcotics Anonymous program. We came to NA knowing very little about how to be happy and enjoy life. A new idea cannot be grafted onto a closed mind. Being open-minded allows us to hear something that may save our lives. It allows us to listen to opposing point of views and come to conclusions on our own. Open-mindedness leads to the very insight that have eluded us during our lives. It is the principle that allows us to participate in a discussion without jumping to conclusions or predetermining right and wrong. We no longer need to make fools of ourselves by standing up for non-existent virtues. We have learned that it is okay to not know all the answers, for then we are teachable and can learn to live our new life successfully. I always say that, and I want to get something out of the way. Like when he asked me to do this, and I've been to places and they call it the Sunday spiritual speaker, right? And even though the spiritual principles of this program have shaped my life and made my life what it is, I apply spiritual principles in most of my affairs. I'm just kidding, all my affairs, but I do have a selective vocabulary when it comes to cuss words. I like certain cuss words. They make me feel a certain way, just like when you try to explain something to somebody, cuss word makes more sense. So I'm going to do my best not to cuss, but, I'm not one of those people that are working on not cussing, so we're just... I hear people say, I might cuss, I'm working on it. I'm not working on it. I just wanted to put that out there. So if it slips out, it slips out. But I'm just to the point in my life to where, I heard it this weekend that, even though I am changing because it's an inside job, for me, it's my perception of other people have been changing. The older I'm getting and the more clean time that I'm accumulating and the more step work that I'm doing and the more working with others, my perception of people. Because people don't get better how I see them get better. It's just like I've had a lot of people mention that to me this year. I'm the convention chair of our area. I was the convention chair last year. It was a little rough, we bumped some heads along the way or whatever, and this year I just kind of changed my perception of the whole thing, like, and I've been getting along with more people, and people are coming up to me and say, man, you're really changing, and you're really, handling situations better, and it's good to have goals in Narcotics Anonymous, even with some time clean, and even with some perceptions that people have of you. Like, I'm not the favorite person in my area. I'm a very honest person when it comes to this program. Let me get this out of the way. I love Narcotics Anonymous. I love it so much, and I'm so passionate about it. I do service work on every level. Everywhere I go, I do service work. I just don't do service work in my area. I go other places. I've been to so many different places because of Narcotics Anonymous, and I always read this because it says what we knew about life before we come to NA almost killed us. I was the smartest, stupidest mother, I knew. I had all the answers, but I didn't have a clue how to live life successful. I didn't know how to live with or without drugs. And so when I came to Narcotics Anonymous, I was 27 years old. I had a 9-month-old kid. I was in a relationship, and I thought I knew everything. I stayed around here for 5.5 months. I had went through the process. I had started coming to meetings. My uncle's been clean for over 20 years. He introduced me to Narcotics Anonymous. He started bringing me to meetings, and he said, you need to get a sponsor. And I remember him looking at me and say, I'm not going to be your sponsor. And I was like, I don't want you to be my fucking sponsor, right? But anyways, and the thing is that's so funny about my uncle, like, I grew up in a large family. I'm the youngest of 4. My uncle is the youngest of 9. And, when I was looking into Narcotics Anonymous, it was only because she went to the other fellowship and said the only way we were going to stay together is if I went and got help. And a few months back, I was at a gas station, and I had seen my uncle, and he said, hey, when you're ready, I got something for you. And I was like, that might be a couple dollars, so I got to remember that. And but I wasn't sure what he meant. And I seen him walk away, and he had this blue jean jacket on with an NA on it, with a leather patch, NA. So I had called my grandmother, and mind you, the last time I had really had, thought about my uncle was like when I was a kid. I remember, there was a bunch of us cousins, and they all made us go into the bedroom. And I remember, we were, peeking out, seeing what they were doing. And they have, it was like a Survivor moment. They voted him out the family. They said, who wants Dan to come to any more family functions and be a part of this family? And everyone was like, they voted him the fuck out, right? And I was just like, whoa. And I never knew what that was about. And I remember calling my, grandma, and I said, hey, what's Dan doing? What's up with Dan? And she's like, well, he got clean, and he goes to NA, and he goes to all these places, and she was so proud of him, and she had all these good things to say about him. And I remember, well, fucking, I don't know what he's got for me, but it sure the fucking ain't NA. I don't need NA. I don't even know what NA means, right? And sure enough, I went to the other fellowship. I went to a meeting, shook a few hands, drank some coffee, won 50-50, and got high, right? That was my experience with the other fellowship. And so when I needed some recovery, or, I needed to get some help, I called my uncle. And I came to my first meeting. And I was high, was high as hell. And they were passing out key tags, right? Fucking key tags. And they said, anyone want a white key tag? And my uncle went, what the fuck are you looking at me for? He's like, you want one of them. I was like, what do I need a key tag for? I ain't got no keys. I ain't got no car key. I ain't got no house key. I don't even have a little padlock key. I don't even have no keys. Who came up with key tags? Who's giving dope fiends key tags, right? Here, your life's fucked up. Take a key tag with no keys, right? The fuck am I going to do with a key tag? So I took the damn key tag, and I remember the drugs wearing off, right? And my thing, I always say, I loved getting high, but I hated running out. That fucking running out, knowing you're out, and then your high go away. That was the worst feeling in the fucking world. And it was like, here we go. Let's go fucking get one. And, God, I still remember that feeling, man. Of not wanting to get one, but knew I had to get one. I had to get one. And I was willing to do it at any cost. I was willing to hurt anybody I had to hurt. And for me, it wasn't I wasn't a big dope pusher or a corner boy or a robber or a bank robber. I was a petty thief. I robbed from my family. I hurt the people that loved me the most. I was a chain thief and a medicine cabinet seeker, right? I got high off stupidest shit. And I remember the drugs was wearing off, and I was in this meeting, and I walked in this meeting, and this dude, man, that I used to cop from, I used to buy weed from, was chairing a meeting. I was like, what the fuck is this about? And he walked over me, man, and gave me the biggest hug I had ever had in my life. And I grew up in a family where I was physically, mentally, and spiritually abused. I was abused with God this and God that, and thank God that, you weren't raised the way I was raised, and with the Bible, and, you don't have it as bad as I do, and, that's how I was raised. I never had any self-esteem. I never had any courage. Everything I had was fear. I feared my father. I feared my father for a long time. And I come into Narcotics Anonymous, and I got all that stuff tucked away. I got it all locked in a safe inside of me, and I started to come into Narcotics Anonymous, and I was able to stop using. I was able to stop getting a clean time, and I was listening, and I heard people share, you need a sponsor, and I asked the guy to be my sponsor, and he told me he wasn't sponsoring. He said, I can't sponsor you. And so all that rejection started brewing up, and I was like, fuck this, man. I'm not asking nobody else. I can't handle rejection right now. And I was sitting in meetings a couple of days that go by, and my uncle had me in the van, and he was dropping me off, and he said, listen, man, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, right? That's why I'm so passionate about Narcotics Anonymous, because you guys don't realize how these simple things that you said to me a long time ago still resonate in my life. They still have purpose. They still mean something because they changed my life. And I remember sitting in a meeting, I heard this guy sharing, and he's talking about all these different things, and I was like, man, that's me. That's I just could identify, and I was scared to death, and I walked up to him and I said, man, will you be my sponsor? He said, man, I'd be honored to be your sponsor. And we started, writing steps, and I was in step 1, and I was writing steps. And a lot of step work was about her. And he said, listen, man, you're going to have to redo this. He said, I can't help her. I can only help you. I was like, but it's her fucking fault. It's her fault, right? So if we can figure out why she keeps messing up, I think everything will be fine. He's like, it don't work that way. So I had worked a couple steps and had rode a couple steps, and have you ever heard one foot in Narcotics Anonymous, the other foot out? That was me. I was the surface recovering addict. 139. 1, I admitted I was powerless over my addiction. 3, I turned it over to something. And 9, I'm sorry, baby. And so basically, some stuff came out. Some lies came out. Some stuff had happened. And she said it wasn't going to work. She left me. It's over. I started the open heart surgery process. Stalking with the intent to stalk. And everything went out the window. It didn't matter. Everything else didn't matter. I started, going in her house, looking for stuff and listening to stuff and, and doing what we do, and found what I was looking for. And I call it open heart surgery process because when you go looking for that stuff and you don't have a defense, you're going to have a heart attack. It's like we want to find what we're looking for, but not ready for it when we find it. And I fucking found it. It was a goddamn answer machine, kind of like this. Back in the day, this was 2005. They had answer machines. That motherfucker was flashing, and I hit the button. Right? Hit the fucking button. It said, beep, this is Carl. Was at a meeting last night and heard you sharing. Let's go get some coffee. I'm like, well, who the fuck is Carl? Right? Like, we just fucking broke up. Like, this motherfucker, who the fuck is Carl, right? So I go to my house, my mama's house, and I call her. Who the fuck's Carl? What are you talking about? I was in your house. I listened to your voice machine. Who is Carl? Right? She's like, you're fucking crazy. And hung up on me. And later that night, I was in the bushes. And the window's up here, right? I'm a tall guy, and the window's up here. So I had to jump. I'm like, I'm trying. She's fucking talking to Carl. And I heard it, clear as day. And I'll never forget these words. She's like, I never really loved him, Carl. I just felt sorry for him. And I'm talking about, this is the woman I had my first child with. You know what I mean? I was like, you bitch, right? And I heard, oh my God, Carl, he's outside. Fuck right, I'm outside, bitch. Right? I mean, he said it last night, man. So I don't call mine a relapse because, like he said, you have to have recovery to relapse. Like I just call mine, picking up where I left off. You know what I mean? Like it says in the Webster's Dictionary, relapse is the fall in the former state after improvement. I wasn't improving shit. I fucking slapped on a clean outfit, brushed my teeth, and went to some meetings. I was waiting for the other foot to drop. And it dropped. And it dropped fucking hard. And I went and got high. And I started using again. And I couldn't stop. I'd come to meetings, somebody say something, and I'd go get high. I'd get a white key tag, I'd go get high. I'd get another white key tag, and I'd go get high. And it was a vicious cycle. It went on for months. And ended up in the hospital, gangrene in both my legs. When I was 19 years old, I had blood clots in both my legs. I have this rare condition to where all my veins have collapsed and closed. So other veins in my legs are, trying to find other way to take the blood to my heart. And it's been going on my whole life since I was 19 years old, and I never did anything about it. I never took my medicine. I never went to doctors. I never took care of myself. And it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. I ended up in the hospital on March 22nd of 2006 with gangrene in both my legs, and it almost killed me. And I remember getting admitted. I went to sleep. I had this dream, this crazy-ass dream about being at my funeral, and nobody was there. And there was one person there. I met him at a Narcotics Anonymous event in Dayton, Ohio, and he was standing over my casket. He said, man, this dude was good. He just couldn't stop using. And I remember waking up, I got to get out of here. And they're like, you ain't going nowhere. And I was like, all right. And I stayed, and I was in there for a couple of days. I got out. I went to a meeting, and I surrendered. I picked up a white key tag, and I knew what that fucking key tag meant. It didn't mean about having a key. It didn't mean about having a car. It meant about something of substance. It meant something to me because I wanted it. I wanted that key tag. I wanted that surrender. It was clear as day what I had wanted. And I was no longer worried about what if only just one more time. I wasn't worried about the fantasy anymore. I was worried about, I didn't want to die. I didn't want my daughter to be at my funeral. I didn't want none of that shit. I wanted to stay clean, and I wanted to stay clean for myself. And I got clean, and I called my sponsor, and I said, will you still sponsor me? He said, I never stopped being your sponsor. I said, I'm ready to work steps. He said, no, you're not. He said, you going to let the fucking smoke clear, right? He said, you're going to stay clean for 30 days, and then we going to get busy. And I stayed clean for 30 days, and I got my 30-day key tag. And the peanut gallery said, how many of those you got? So now I got some motivation, right? Look, some of y'all say some shit that helped me, and some of y'all say some shit that really helped me, right? Some of y'all love me, and some of y'all don't. The ones that don't, I fucking love y'all. I love when they talk about me. It make me feel good. Like, oh, they're talking about me. Talk about me? I must be doing something right? Because I used to talk shit about y'all. Like, y'all don't know what the fuck y'all talking about. Staying clean, not using no drugs. Y'all don't drink wine at a wedding, right? That was my thought. Like, how you gonna go to a wedding with not drink wine? It's real easy, right? I've been to several weddings. I've DJ'd several weddings, right? We're gonna get to that in a second. But anyways, I had some motivation. So now I'm like, I get in the step process, I start working steps. And it says, are you at peace with the fact that you're an addict? It don't say, are you at peace with the fact that you stole from your mom, you stole from your grandma, you lied to your dad, you lied to this? It says, are you at peace with the fact that you're an addict? And then it goes on to say, are you at peace with the things we must do, as far as meeting attendance and stuff like that? And I felt a sense of hope, man. I don't know about y'all, but that unmanageability section, and unmanageability section, those are some fucking intense questions, right? Have you ever abused anyone as your addiction? Yes, I have. Have you ever gone to jail? Yes, I have. How does your sense of purpose and all this stuff around family and society as a whole? And I'm like, I feel like shit, right? All these different questions and unmanageability was so uncomfortable, but as I answered them and as I got through it, man, and as it talks about inward and outward unmanageability, I knew what outward unmanageability. I knew I was fucked up. I knew I couldn't get a job. I had 13 W-2s one year. 13 fucking W-2s. 13 of them. And I always say I was a come-upper and a make-it-happen-er, right? That's how I got high. I either came up on something or I made it happen. That's how it was. And I remember I had 13 W-2s. I was like, oh, we get high tonight, right? Then I go to the tax place and they fill all this paper out and they're like, you're going to get $310. I was like, damn, I got 13 W-2s. I only get $300. He's like, well, some of them you only worked a couple days. I'm like, well, that makes sense. I always quit on payday. Could have been the drugs, right? So I just remember, going to second step. And if you listen to the second step, it says that it doesn't say this step will restore you. It says could. Could. Keyword could. So I had to find out what could mean, right? What does could mean? Could means that maybe it will, maybe it won't. And what I love about that step is it says in our literature that we have to accept this step to start the road to recovery. And I was like, oh, that's some deep ass shit, right? And I remember just like going through the whole process of that step and talking to my sponsor. And one of the things that I was fearful of, when it comes to the word restored, there was nothing before using drugs that I liked about me. There was no like, oh, I love the person I was before I started using. No, I started using because I hated who the fuck I was. And I'm like, I don't want to be restored at that. And he just kind of like said it real simple. Like, think about being restored to something natural. Something that was supposed to be, perfect. Or not perfect, but something that, was loving and caring. And that made more sense than being restored to that scared little boy I was before I took that first drug. And so I had just got into, to a process to where I said, regardless of how I feel, I'm going to keep moving forward. And that's what I would tell myself. I would work a question. I would talk to other people about it. I would go to meetings. I would share about it. Don't y'all miss that? Don't y'all miss people coming to meetings and asking questions about step work? Like, we don't hear that as much, right? I always say, like, Narcotics Anonymous is a little watered down. It wasn't watered down when I got here. It was like, okay, you're fucked up. Shut the fuck up. Sit right here in the front row. You're not allowed to sit back there. You have to sit right here, and you have to listen. Don't go smoke. Don't go vape. Don't play TikTok. Sit right there, or you're going to die. That's what they told me. And I said, well, fuck, you don't know me. I'm going to do what I want. And I got high every time I did that. And so I started listening to them, and I started, understanding that I think they knew what they were talking about. And I just started following them to places, to different conventions and different places and different speaker jams. And I was in the step process, and here I am. Now I'm on the third step, and I'm talking about making a decision for myself, not for other people, and somebody's not making it for me. And I'm trying to see what this power is, and what power I want it to be and not be, and talking to my sponsor about it, and I just got this overwhelming fear over me that I was going to become a mindless robot, that I was going to turn my life over and I wasn't going to be able to cuss, or I wasn't going to be able to, we know that's not true, right? Or I wasn't going to be able to make decisions on my own. I was going to have to live this robotic life, right? If I just turned over my life to something I had no idea what I'm turning my life over to. And it was the complete opposite. I just was like so much, I had so much fear when I got clean, man. I was so scared I was going to use again. And I just remember just like pushing that fear aside and just going to meetings. And that was my motto. I went to meetings. I called my sponsor. I went to bed. I was unemployable. I was fighting for Social Security. I had been denied twice. I couldn't work because I had these wounds on my legs and I had my legs wrapped. So I couldn't work. What I normally did was working in like restaurants. That's what I always did. And I was a painter, and my legs were so painful, I just could not hold a job. And I remember walking to meetings, doing sponsorship, going to speaker jams, and this was just like something I did for months, just like over and over again, just like repetitive motion, like going to meetings, feeling empty inside, going to meetings, feeling worthless, calling my sponsor, pissed off, mad as hell that Sarah and fucking Carl are in a relationship now. We're not done talking about Carl. Carl ain't fucking going nowhere, right? Carl's a punk, just so you know. You came in late, Carl's a punk. But anyways, so I'm going through all these feelings, man. And I have no idea how to feel them, but I know I don't want to use. So I'm doing what you guys told me to do. I'm writing steps. I'm applying these things in my life. I'm not using. The most important thing that you will hear me say today is I'm not using. And I don't want to use. And I kept doing that. And I kept coming to meetings. I kept calling my sponsor. I kept doing this. I kept doing that. And I had this deep, dark feeling that I was going to mess up. Do you know what that's like? To keep trying and keep trying and keep trying. But deep down inside, you got this feeling that you're going to fuck up. And I'm fighting that feeling. And I'm like, please, I'm doing what my sponsor's telling me to do. I'm working this step. And we get done with the third step. And I always wanted my sponsor to like say something like a ha-ha moment, like, I always, and he just would go, all right, moving on. Read step 4 and call me when you're done. And I remember when I got done with step 3, he closed his book, and I got up, and I was like, all right, see you later. And he was like, nah, sit back down. He's like, the man, you are now is not the same man you was before. You have came leaps and bounds from who you was before. He was like, give yourself a break and just work the 4th step. It says that those who fail to work a 4th step relapse. He was like, just give yourself a break and do a moral and fearless, loving inventory of yourself. I was like, loving? So I remember getting in the 4th step, and, in our sponsorship family, they have these, all those questions in relationships, and I was like, holy shit. And he was like, we don't do that. I was like, yeah. He was like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to write about relationships. And he gave me like different groups of relationships, like authority figures, girlfriends, schools, family, all these different. He's like, you're going to write about these relationships with these individuals. And I was like, bet. So, I got busy, man. I started writing about relationships, right? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And I had paragraphs of stuff, right? Paragraphs about stuff about girlfriends and school and family. And I get over to my sponsor's house, and he was like, all right, let's hear what you got. And I fucking give him a paper out, and I'm all proud. All right, girlfriends. So this bitch, she went and did this. So this motherfucker had this fucking say, and this son of a bitch, and he was like, all right, let's move on to family. I was like, all right, this motherfucker and this son of a bitch, and then this asshole right here. Yeah, this asshole. He was like, hold on, man, stop. He was like, who's some bitch? I was like, some bitch. He was like, well, what's their name? I was like, some bitch. He was like, what's her name? I was like, fucking Sarah. He was like, well, what's this name? I was like, Carl. He was like, well, what's this name? I was like, Tommy. He was like, okay, say that. Write that in there. I was like, no, fuck that. No, fuck them, right? And I was so uncomfortable with writing people's names because I didn't like the feeling that came along with it. And he goes, you can't do that. He was like, you can't make an amends to son of a bitch. I was like, why not? He was like, you got to write their names down. You got to redo it. So I redid it, and I fought through it, and I said their name. And I got past that, and I did a 5th step, and I'm still feeling empty. I'm still feeling dark. I still feel like I'm going to mess up, and I'm in the 5th step. I'm like, this ain't working. But here's the thing. If you keep coming back, and you keep doing what's suggested, and you keep doing what you don't want to do, something's going to eventually happen. And I kept doing it. And I remember starting my 6th step, and here comes the chirpers, the motherfuckers, right? Oh, what's he in the Step of Club month? He's only got such and such clean time. He's in the 6th step. I got 10 years clean. I'm only in the 2nd step. And how is this happening? And he's working the steps too fast. He's going to use. And I'm like, damn, man. Like, you make fun of me because I couldn't stop. Now I'm stopping. I'm working on myself. And you're talking about me. Great, right? But I didn't care because I didn't want to use. And I had people in my corner that loved me regardless of what everybody else was saying. And I kept working step, and I got to the moment. I got to the moment where my life changed. And it was in a form of a question. It said in the 6th step, it said, what is the difference between allowing the God of my understanding to remove these defects of character and suppressing them? And I realized that I just wasn't suppressing my defects. I was suppressing joy. I was suppressing life. I was suppressing it because I was so scared to feel it. I was so scared to accept love. I was so scared to accept happiness. Because I was so bitter and so fucking mad at what I thought my life should look like. You know, when I got to Narcotics Anonymous, y'all didn't look like me. Y'all didn't act like me. You know, in my fellowship, you know, there wasn't a lot of white people when I got clean. There wasn't any young people. You motherfuckers were old. And I'm like, this is what my life is? I always fuck with them now. But like, y'all were old then, now you're older. But those people saved my life, right? And I remember just like calling my sponsor, and I was in all this I was all so emotional, and I was like, damn, man, I just had a moment. He was like, what happened? And I was like, man, I'm finally starting to see that it's not that I'm looking for something. That I'm looking for something to happen. I'm trying to put myself in a position where I can't get out of it clean. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but I was forcing my downfall. Right? Have you ever done that? Like, oh, I'm a failure. It says in our literature, it says something cries out for failure. It's like when they wrote that shit in 1979 and 1981, they didn't even know how to describe it. They're like, how do we describe this? We'll just use the word something. Something. So you're just, living your life, you're fucked up, and people go, what's wrong with you? Something. I don't know. But something inside of me just wants me to throw everything away. The same voice that tells me to say something, like, say something, say it, do it, is the same voice that cusses me out for doing it. You's a stupid motherfucker. Why'd you say that? The same voice. The same voice. So I just continued to get in the grasp that, I needed to stop focusing on what I lost or what I thought I lost and start enjoying what I have. And I started to really, really understand that I wasn't looking for a particular thing. I was just looking for nothing. I didn't want nothing anymore. I didn't care what was going to happen anymore. I didn't care if I got this or if I got that. I just knew what I didn't want. I didn't want to use and I didn't want to die. So I just started to say, hey, listen, whatever happens, happens. And you know what? Next thing I know, my life just took off. I got granted Social Security. They gave me all this money, right? They gave me back pay. They gave me money. The song at the time was a little scrappy. I got money in the bank. Shorty, what you think, right? I bought me a van. I bought me a conversion van, a little short body conversion van. Had the rims. They was 15s, but they had the letters. They was clean, right? Had the TVs in the van, right? The bump, it was purple. It was an aggressive purple, right? It was like it wasn't a girly purple. It was aggressive purple, right? It was mine. I had bought it. I had bought a vehicle for the first time in my life. I had got a license. When I got clean, I didn't have a license. It was suspended for 7 years, and I never had a license. So that's funny. I never had any insurance or anything like that, and so like I'm staying clean and I'm getting things in my life, and I got this this complacency started to kick in a little bit. I think I'm like in the 8th and 9th step, and my sponsor was like, all right, man, 8th and 9th step. The 8th step and the 9th step is the real change steps. This is for you. You're going to make amends and you're going to free the guilt and shame so you can live in the moment. He was like, but don't get caught up in who you're making the amends to. Focus on the change. And I was like, cool. And, it talks about in the 8th step, you may have to make amends to somebody who also harmed you. And I got focused on that, man. I got fixed and focused on fucking Sarah and Carl. I'm like, I'm not saying sorry to these motherfuckers, right? And I'm fixed, and I'm going to meetings late, and I'm leaving early, and I'm in this van, and I'm bumping, and I'm watching videos, and I'm going to meetings late and I'm leaving early. I'm not doing my step work and I'm not calling my sponsor. And Halloween comes around and I got the first hour and they got the second hour. And I took Chloe out and went trick-or-treating and I went to drop her off. And here they come outside and he grabs one hand and she grabs the other hand. And they walk off into the sunset. And it fucking broke my fucking heart. Her and another man just took my daughter, and I saw the visual, and I said, that's supposed to be me, ain't supposed to be him. And I called my sponsor, and I was like, man, that's fucked up, man. That ain't supposed to be him. It's supposed to be me. There ain't no supposed to be no motherfucking other man. That's my daughter. Fuck him, right? He was like, well, what are you going to do? I was like, I'm going to drive this van in their house. He was like, what's that? I'm going to drive this van in their house. He was like, well, let me know how that works out for you. I said, well, you ain't going to stop me? He was like, well, no. It sounds like you already got your mind made up. So I didn't drive my van in the house. And I called him the next day. He said, well, how'd that work out for you? I was like, I didn't do it. He's like, I knew you weren't going to. He's like, what are you going to do now? I was like, I don't know. What should I do? He's like, you know what will help? I was like, what's that? He was like, step work. Stop going to meetings late. Go early. Stay. Hang out. Tell people what you're feeling. Stop hiding behind things. We all know you got things. You know, when I first got clean, we was doing PlayStation 2s. I was waiting for the money to hit my bank account. It hit. I bought a PlayStation 2 and a South Pole outfit. That's fucked up. Hey, y'all know South Pole was the shit. I still got that outfit. I can't fit it. A little bigger now. But anyways, I got busy, man, and it was like that brief moment, man. I was in that spiritual and emotional lapse that it talks about. I didn't want to use, just didn't want to feel. You know, for me, it's not about using, man. It's about not feeling. I don't want to feel. I don't want to feel things. You said it last night. I love what you said. I'm the same way. Don't come up to me after I'm done sharing in my area. I share in my area, and as soon as I'm done sharing, they want to run up to me. I didn't like you when I first met you, but you're okay now. Man, fuck you. Like, I don't give a fuck if you like me now or if you didn't like me then. Why tell somebody that? Why let somebody sit up here and pour their fucking heart out and then go, well, I really didn't like you. Motherfucker, I still don't like you, right? But because you got to think about it before you approach somebody. This is my experience, strength, and hope. This is what, you know, they used to, back in the day, they used to tell me, Craig, when you're asked to share, you share what it was like, what brought you here, and what keeps you here, right? That's what I do. I don't, that's my goal when I get up here. And when I do that, it wakes stuff up. It wakes up feelings. And so when I'm up here just like pulling this shit out and giving it to you, I don't need you to come up to me and fucking throw up on me. You know? Like, you know, I had the same thing happen. Like, oh, that's great. When you get a chance to share, you share it, right? And I'm sorry I just had to say that because you did it. You woke it up. But it's some real shit, though. It's some real shit. There's some emotions that happen up here. It talks about in our step work that this step, when we make that third step decision, it shows in the way we live. Yeah. We know who's working steps in this process. We know. I know. I can tell because I work steps in my life and I know what it's done in my life. And even though I make mistakes and I fall short and I'll cuss two people out in a heartbeat. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, man, I know what I stand for and what I stand on. I stand on Narcotics Anonymous and step work. And so, like, I got step 10, and I remember, like, getting in with my sponsor, and he was like, all right, you got to fill out this IP number 9 for 30 days. I was like, 30 days? So, like, I did it, and, like, 6 months went by, and I called him, and I was like, I got 30 days. He was like, in a row? I got to do it in a row? Fuck. So I started doing it in a row. And I got to like day 16. And it says, it talks about in IP number 9, it says, who do you trust and who trusts in you? And on both of those, for 16 days, I never wrote the word God. Never wrote God. I trust my sponsor, I trust my uncle, I trust my daughter. I didn't write God. And I saw it. It's like, you trust God. God's brought you to this moment. Does God trust you? God trusts me. So I just remember getting in these different moments of freedom, man. Just for me, my best moment is sitting in a meeting and nobody's saying nothing. Right. You get people, I'm going to share because nobody was saying nothing. Yeah, that's your disease. Because those moments when nothing, I tell people all the time, I'm new. What do I do? What do I do? Nothing. Don't do nothing. Be new. Just be new. Because what happens when you stay and you keep staying and you're not new no more, you get a job, you get kids, you get girlfriends, you get responsibilities, you get shit, you get stuff, and all that takes work. And it's no longer about just being new. You got to get up, you got to get your kid dressed, you got to take your medication. Man, I'm on a blood thinner. I got to fucking take this blood thinner twice a day. It's a shot in my stomach. And I got to be so vigilant because it's got to be every 12 hours. So when I take it in the morning, it's the same time I got to take it at night. And I can't forget. If I forget and take it, then I got to take it at the same time late at night. And it's vigilance. I got to practice vigilance. I got to take the shot. I got to, poke myself. And it's like some days I don't want to poke myself. You know what I mean? I don't want to poke myself anymore. But I got to do it. I just had a procedure a couple weeks ago. They went in and I got these 2 massive stents to try to help my blood flow. All my blood was dumping into my gut. The veins were dumping into my gut, so they're trying to get the blood to flow into these stents. I was asleep for 3.5 hours. And I woke up and it was like I was so scared because, for me it's like the anesthesia part is not the scary part. Going to sleep is not scary. It's, am I going to wake up? The waking up part. What's going to happen when I wake up? I had one in 2012. I was asleep for 4.5 hours. I woke up, I had the worst back pain, and I was so sick for weeks. And so anyways, it's just stuff that I have to endure. It's stuff that I have to go through. I can't go around it. I can't go under it. I have to go through it. It's a part of my life. And every time I go through these things with my health, the same thing always happens. I have 2 kids. I have a 20-year-old sophomore in college, and I have a 10-year-old son. My daughter has 5 siblings, 2 before her, and then Sarah and Carl have 2 other kids. Sarah and Carl are married, right? And Carl is her father, her stepfather. She calls him dad. She don't call him stepdad. She calls him fucking dad, right? And how I feel about it always changes. For me, I don't have to accept something all the fucking time. I have to accept how I react. I've heard a lot of stuff about relationships this weekend, and it says in our literature, it says relationships can be a painful, terrible area. But that's not even the powerful fucking sentence. The powerful sentence is, it says we seem to fantasize. We place unrealistic expectations on ourselves and others. That's why they can be. Because if you just do what I think you should do, we're fine. Right? And I've been clean. I have 2 kids. Before the relationship I'm in now, I was in 2 other relationships. And I have kids with both of them. And the first one, I was with her in active addiction. The second one, I was, I was dating a newcomer. And she got pregnant. She kept using. And I got the baby. He was born addicted to drugs. She left. He stayed. They said the baby's coming home with you. He's not going with her. She left. He was, going through this horrible withdrawal. He was in there for 62 days, and I was there every day. I don't know if you've ever experienced powerlessness on that level, but it was rough. But I I had the fellowship, I had God, I had my sponsor, and I had my family, and they told me, it's very important that he's going to cry, he's going to do this, he's going to do that, and there ain't nothing you could do except for hold him and be there. My son spent 62 days in a room. His first 62 days of life was in a room. And I was there, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. As a man, they couldn't put me in these different places. It was in Dayton, and I live in Ohio. It was 35 minutes away, and I just had to go home and come back. I couldn't stay in the room with him, so I went home and came back. You know what it's like to leave, that situation, knowing you don't want to leave? I can't leave him. It's my son. But I had to. I had no other choice. It's the rules. I had to leave. Leave and come back. Leave and come back. Leave and come back. And I remember they called me and said, are you still at the hospital? I'm like, no, I just left. They're like, well, we got some good news. If everything works out, the tests come back, he's going to be coming home. I was like, oh, shit, he's coming home, right? And I was all excited, and I called everybody, like, he's coming home, he's coming home. And they're like, oh, he's coming home. And I got off the phone, and I'm driving down the highway, and it just hit me. I was like, oh, fuck, he's coming home. Here we go, right? And before that, like, I went to conventions. I went where I wanted. I didn't do this. I didn't worry about anything. I just went where I went, and I did what I did, and, I was a rebel without a cause. And then here comes this fucking cause, this little baby, Craig Jr., and I'm like, what the fuck do we do now, right? And they're like, hey, he's going to have some struggles. And I was like, okay. And he came home in April, and he didn't sleep till December. And and every time something happened, I took him to the doctor, and I said, I don't know what's wrong, but something's wrong. And they're like, it's diarrhea. He's fine. I'm back again. He's coughing. It's a cough. He's fine. Okay. And they knew us by name. Craig and Craig's here. Because I didn't want nothing to happen to him. I didn't want nothing to happen to him. And so I let the fellowship help me. I let my family help me. And y'all threw me a man shower, right? And I got all this stuff. And I've loved this baby, man. I love this kid so fucking much, man. And he's 10 now, and he's in 4th grade, and he loves football and loves wrestling, and he has such a fucking wonderful personality, and I never thought I could do anything like that. I never thought I could love somebody because I thought I was unable to love people like that. Because I'm so worried about, who's going to love me. And it ain't always about who you're going to love, or who's going to love you. It's about who you need to love. And what happened was is I've loved him so much, I've started to allow somebody else to love me. It's not like nobody loves me. No, you won't let nobody love you. And so, like, we're getting through it, right? I'm sorry. And so, like, kindergarten, Zoom, right? He did Zoom on kindergarten, and he struggled. He went to 1st grade, he struggled in 2nd grade. And then last year in 3rd grade, he did really well. But he has a horrible handwriting, and that's all she ever said. He's doing great, but he can't write worth the shit. And I'm just like, me, like, I love accolades. But don't tell me how fucked up I am. And don't tell me how fucked up my kid is. And she go, he's doing great, but he can't write worth a shit. I'm like, fuck you, bitch. You know what I mean? Let's see your fucking handwriting, right? Want to fucking critique my kid, and every time I got a report card, A's, B's, can't write. And I take it so fucking personal, right? So now he's in 4th grade, and he's got all A's and B's, all S's, no U's, right? And he's still got the same fucking handwriting, and a different teacher, and she don't give a fuck. But this bitch over here, right? It's like, yeah, that son of a bitch. But so, anyways, I just like, have learned how to change my perceptions over and over again. It's like, man, the more I understand, the more I try to understand, I see that I don't really know nothing. I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue of what I'm supposed to do, but I know what I'm not supposed to do. I'm not supposed to give up on myself. I'm not supposed to give up on people I love, and I'm not supposed to use. I know that for a fact. And like my life has changed, and it's changed in several different ways, and I'm glad I'm able to talk about the things that I need to talk about. You know, my daughter is a sophomore in college. You know, she's a girl, a sophomore in college, a girl, a woman. She's a woman. She's 20 years old, and she's a woman, and I will kill somebody, right? And she's experienced some things that I didn't want her to experience. She's experienced them. So there's no longer the fear if she's going to experience it or not. She's been through it. She's gotten through it, and now she's getting good grades. She's a Division III NCAA Division III starting volleyball player. Come on, man. I was a fucking dope fiend. I slept on couches. And something inside of me has gave her the ability to see that she practices, like she, think about this. 20 years old, college, I'm sure she parties, I'm sure she does this, she's home for Thanksgiving. What would you do? Not a goddamn thing, right? She's at fucking work today, working a fucking double, because she's got a fucking extremely large car payment. And she knows that if she doesn't pay that car payment, they're going to take that fucking car. She's got she's got a nicer car than I fucking do. She's got a 2024 fucking something. I don't even fucking know what it is. Fuck goddamn brand. It's a nice brand new fucking car. Her screen goes all the way across the goddamn door, the dash. I'm like, you fucking asshole. I'm like, I got a 2018 Volkswagen Tiguan. But anyways, she's doing great. Both my kids are doing great, and I'm doing great. You know, I'm in this process of just not trying to get better, but just accept that, whatever is. You know, my biggest fear is falling asleep and not waking up. You know, my son lives with me. We live alone, and I just never want to fall asleep and not wake up, and he have to find me. That's my biggest fear. You know, and so I don't know if anybody's ever experienced that, but I go through that a lot, especially when I go through all these procedures and medications and stuff. It's a very crazy fear that I have, and hopefully that never happens. So yeah, I think that was pretty much all I had to say. But I always say this before I get done sharing. You know, my uncle introduced me to Narcotics Anonymous. Narcotics Anonymous introduced me to my sponsor. You know, I've had the same sponsor since I've been clean. I've had one sponsor. I'm so blessed in that area, man, because he's guided me through the 12 steps. You guys said that's what a sponsor's supposed to do. You know, have I thought about, switching sponsors? Of course. But I've never done it because I've never had to. And, let me start over. I fucked up. Got in that moment. My uncle introduced me to Narcotics Anonymous. Narcotics Anonymous introduced me to a sponsor. A sponsor introduced me to the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous. The 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous introduced me to the God of my understanding. And the God of my understanding introduced me to me, Craig S.